Three, two, one.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another week of the Let's Dig In podcast. I'm your host, Chef Rich Rosendale, and this is a little bit different because this week we are not joined with Rachel Barnett and Christopher Ryloff. I wanted to kind of let you know of some evolution of what we're doing. You'll see the team. I promise they're still with us. They're going to be on future episodes. But, you know, just like with cooking, we tell people whenever we do our modern plating classes that it's difficult to come in and take a class and to leave the class and you've seen all these new concepts and all these new changes and you've been doing things for a certain way for a very long period of time, and that's kind of like your style. So it's difficult. Like, what are you supposed to do? You learn something new, or are you supposed to just change? So we always tell everybody to evolve and to take in all of the new information, all the experiences of your life, cooking classes, what have you, and take what you do and take all that in like a strainer and just evolve what it is that you do. Well, we use and practice what we preach, and we use our same those same principles toward everything that we do. And so for the podcast, Rachel and Chris and I were talking the other day, and we're like, what can we do to move the podcast and evolve it and add more value? We've already had all these great guests on. We've actually got some more awesome ones lined up in the coming weeks. So don't worry, we're going to continue to have great guests. But we also wanted to add some things that we thought might be interesting subject matter. So this episode is kind of an unplugged version, unedited version. This is just going to be me kind of going on a rant, talking about a particular topic. This week, the topic is the nature of work. And, right now, there's all these posts that you see on social media. And let me kind of also mention that I'm a restaurateur. I'm an operator, a business owner. So I see a lot of the same challenges that a lot of people across the country are posting about, and they're frustrated about because, it's so hard to get staff, or, restaurants that are closing because maybe they don't have enough people to kind of cover shifts. And, those are things that are really impacting people. So I wanted to kind of pose my viewpoints, my perspective on it, and say, that it's not necessarily just things that people point to that's easy to reference, like, oh, it's because of people aren't in schools right now, so parents, you're losing those people out of the workforce, or oh, there's the hourly the subsidized unemployment, or it's this generation. There's all these reasons, things that we kind of point to. People are afraid, they don't want to come to work because of still potential COVID related issues. And I think that it's actually much more dynamic than that. I mean, all these things definitely play a role, but there's also a whole plethora of other things that we really haven't really thought about. We're in the restaurant industry, which is, take it from me, extremely labor intensive. I mean, if you wanted to go to an investor and have this idea for a restaurant, it'd be very difficult to get an investor to kind of buy in because, unless they're just really excited about opening up a restaurant, or maybe you have a new kind of concept. Traditional restaurant models are very labor intensive. The margins of profit are pennies on a dollar. There are some restaurants that do really well, but in general, for the amount of work that you put in, it's a lot. It's a tough business. So I don't think that it's surprising to find that it's becoming more and more difficult to attract people to want to come to work in these very, labor intensive environments, kitchens, and it's a lot of work. So what I would say is really to look at the other things that have changed, and that is the fact that generations, like even new people, there may be, like, I look at my kids that are more computer savvy. There's actually other ways for them to monetize, to build models, to to make money, to bring in an income. So it's not necessarily that, oh, working in a restaurant's a bad option. It just may not be as attractive as some of all these other things that you're now competing with. And I think, people that have been running kitchens for a long time, you kind of go into it with that paradigm that, oh, people are just lazy. They don't want to, they don't work the way that we did. It's a whole, like I said, a whole plethora of things that are outliers that are impacting what we're dealing with. So there we've kind of hit on that as far as like, what the challenge is. I went ahead and I did some notes. I usually never take notes, but for some things going into this first talk, I wanted to go ahead and do some notes. So again, more options that are out there for people. So now I wanted to kind of also talk about like two different groups. You have the people looking for work, and then you have the employers, the people that are seeking work. And it's kind of like, now you're at this crossroads. It's like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? We're at this crossroads where you got to open your restaurant, or you got to staff for the season for your club or hotel or whatever. Maybe it's a catering operation. For employers, I really think that if you think about it, the same amount of people, if you're in the business of feeding people, the same amount of people are still eating every day for the most part, compared to pre-pandemic. That's not true for some businesses. Like, for example, we know the airline industry has been hit really hard. The same amount of people aren't traveling and doing tourism the way that they were internationally prior to the pandemic. There are definitely businesses that have been impacted that have lost that revenue stream. But if you feed people, everybody eats. Last time I checked, everybody's still eating their breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. So one of the things is to look at your operation and recalibrate it. Be nimble and say, how can I get my product to the customer wherever they may be? Because maybe they're not coming into your restaurant in the same way that they were prior to the pandemic. And I think that it's dangerous to just assume that things are just going to automatically go back to normal. In some ways, some things will, but there's also a whole layer of impact that the pandemic has left that will linger on for years to come, that will change, the face of the country forever, the world, really. So I think you have to face that. If you remember the saying in the movie No Country for Old Men, toward the end, when the old man says that you can't stop what's coming. And I think as an operator or an owner or the chef of a kitchen or the owner of an inn or hotel, it doesn't mean that you have to completely abandon, who you are, but you do have to be nimble, and you have to recalibrate, and you have to really pause and give careful consideration to the way that you conduct business, because the number one priority is you have to remain cash positive. You've got to have revenue coming in. Otherwise, the issues of finding staff and building a team, it really doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So that is first and foremost. The other thing is, I always used to tell everybody that I always thought that the restaurant industry really for years needed to disrupt itself. It's a very labor intensive model. There's always, it's issues with compensation. And, I know for several years I would go places on my vacation and just work for free. I don't know a lot of industries where you do that, but that was kind of part of the expectation. I was very fortunate that I found an apprenticeship at the Greenbrier Resort where they paid me as an ongoing apprenticeship, and I was fortunate, and I had wonderful experience there, and my work experience really kind of made incredible investments in my skills, and there's been a return on that. So I think that's a big factor, and I also think that efficiency is really huge. I look at the way that a lot of times people get really frustrated when they look at like automation and AI. um, all these things that are kind of happening around the industry. And what I think is there's actually a great opportunity as a restaurateur or a hotel or an operator to change your model to figure out how to be more efficient. When I design a kitchen, I will actually go and I'll look at places like car manufacturers or anybody that's in the manufacturing business and look at the efficiency. Some of my favorite tours over the years, one of actually a very good friend of the show and one of our sponsors was Vitamix. And I've loved working with Vitamix over the years. But one of the highlights of my visits out there was walking through the plant, the factory, and seeing just how organized and efficient their model was. And in restaurants, we don't always think about that. People just build these great big kitchens or they build these great big restaurants, and you don't think about the wasted steps of somebody walking all the way over there to get this versus coming over here. So I think finding efficiency and being more productive and not necessarily like, oh, we need more people or I mean, that's one of the things that you can't give value to your customer because there's value that's lost in the production of products. Maybe things are overproduced or people are wasting. You're waiting on supplies to arrive. There are all sorts of different variables. So, being more efficient is huge. It's huge, and I also think to create an environment that's like really exciting and as challenging as it can be to look at what this new post-COVID world looks like and how the economy and all these different things around us that are swirling around that are changing the way that we work, the nature of work. I think at the end of the day, it's an opportunity for an employer to create something that's exciting and I think that's another thing that if you want to draw great people, I think you also got to figure out a way to create something that people are attracted to, that they're excited about what it is, not just what you're doing, but why you're doing it. How do you get people to be attracted and you're not just, trying to say, well, I guess we got to pay a little bit more. That shouldn't even really be part of the conversation. I mean, it really, you want to do something. I really feel like that you can inspire your team members. And compensation is important. I think that I even look at the minimum wage issues, and I think that a lot of people talk about minimum wage, like, oh, restaurants can't afford that, what have you. But my goal with our company, our organization, is how can I pay the most premium wages and bring on more higher qualified, better trained staff. And then at the other side of the spectrum, we have people that are young people or new to the industry that want to learn, that we can groom and create a runway or a path for them to grow with our company. Not necessarily just trying to hire as many people as you can to solve your labor shortage. And a lot of times when you have ongoing issues, it's because you're asking the wrong questions. And I think for years, restaurants have asked the wrong questions. It's like, how do I get more people? How do I keep more retention? It's like, well, how do you make a better atmosphere? How do you become a more productive facility? How do you make it easier for your team to execute their job? And then the other things kind of end up taking care of themselves. But we don't always kind of aim at the right target, in my opinion. So the next thing to talk about would be the employees, the team members. I mean, there's been so many people that have left the hospitality industry over the last year because of COVID. And, I would venture to guess there's probably 25% more that will change occupations between now and the end of the year, just because there have been, it's been a lot of anxiety for people kind of dealing with the last year of like restaurants closed, open, closed, hotels, just the instability of a lot of hospitality venues has been challenging. So I think that this is an exciting time. If you're maybe a young cook out there, or you're somebody that is at a crossroads with maybe a place that you've been at for a long time, this is really an exciting time, because when I was a chef coming up and getting out of culinary school, it was a few very narrow paths that were kind of the usual paths that people would pick. You know, you would go work in a restaurant, or you go work in a club or a hotel or what have you. But now there are a myriad of different options. I mean, you can create businesses online. And, you know, what do you have to lose? And I think that a lot of people right now, that I would say, if there are people that maybe have just been kind of kicking back and just, you know, saying, hey, I'm almost kind of a little bit taking a little bit of a vacation right now. I mean, now is the time to activate and get involved and try things, because there's also a lot of other people out there that are competing for the same opportunities. And I'm telling you that you've always got to keep your own personal momentum. You can't let the conditions around you slow you down or influence you to do something that maybe isn't in your best interest. And now's the time to be building like crazy and investing. And when I mean building and investing, I mean investing in yourself, you know, whether that be reading or taking classes, or absorbing, trying things, you know, trying to create like new opportunities for yourself. And the other thing is, there's also tools now that never existed when I was graduating from culinary school. I mean, there's all these apps and stuff that are out there now that you can basically have, you know, Upwork, which is a basically for freelancers, people that want to do everything from graphic design to accounting, you know, what have you. I mean, there's tools now that never existed, or people that are creating online stores for products. But again, you've got to really have a sense of urgency and pick up the momentum, because like now is the time. Like, you will never have this day ever again. Tomorrow is a new day, but keeping and building the momentum is so imperative. It's so important. I remember hearing the old analogy of, like, you know, strike while the pan is hot, because it may not get hot again. And you always think that, oh, you know, in a couple of years that this will happen, or I can do this later, I can do this at this point. But the reality is that you really don't know how the trajectory of your life is going to unfold. But if you can focus on all the things that you have control over, you'll be able to impact that trajectory more and more and more. But if you're just kind of moseying along at, you know, the mercy of fate and whatever happens, you will have less influence. And before you know it, all these other people that have remained hungry will pass you by. So it is an incredible and an exciting time. The other thing is, I think that it's really important having goals. You know, it's not necessarily the goal itself, it's the process of going toward that goal that's going to make you better. And it's going to give you a competitive advantage over others that are maybe less disciplined in going after those goals. So don't worry if you don't always attain the goal that you're going after. It's just the simple process of having one and working diligently every day toward executing it, toward reaching it. I think that the other thing to think about is, one of the great things that has kind of arisen over the last couple of years, again, is looking at things like, you know, Shopify and PayPal, and, you know, people being able to have you know, e-commerce and all these different things that you used to not have. You used to not have these tools. And you can now conduct business of cyber currency. I mean, don't get me started on talking about cyber currency and all the different things that are out there. But now is a great time to be able to explore and try different things because you have the tools now that you can do it. And I think that as there's a lot of different business models that Rosendale Collective has. I mean, everything from restaurants to licensed partnerships to commissary kitchen, prepared meals. And I really think that when I sell consulting, I'm selling my time. And the challenge with that is that you only have so much time, and it's not really a transferable model to anyone else. So I think that if you can look at the new era of work, and you can look at work through a different lens and think about creating models. And as much as we may be frustrated, people might get upset about like, oh, I can't believe these YouTubers are making all this money, or this person's making this and this person's making that. And it's like not even a legitimate job, but it is. I mean, it's like people will pay what they think something is worth. And I think now is a great opportunity that you can actually create models that create reoccurring cash flow or income. And what's attractive about that is that you're not necessarily selling your time, and that frees you up to do more things with your time that you elect to do, as opposed to the traditional work models. I mean, I think about having conversations with my parents and grandparents over the years, family members. I mean, as we all generations change from generation to generation, my son Lawrence and Fran and Liam will probably look at things completely differently than me, and I'm sure there'll be a better, smarter, faster version of me when they get older, and they'll do things that I never thought about. But the old models of basically just saying like, well, I'm going to exchange my time for this compensation. I think that's fine. And there will still continue to be elements of that. But I think that what we have now is that you also have the opportunity to also supplement models that can create revenue or wealth or compensation for you that aren't necessarily demanding so much solely of your time. So if you can think about that, maybe if you have a spice company or you have a barbecue company, how can you create models that can bring in an income for you that, again, don't rely solely on your participation? So lots of different things there to unpack as we're kind of talking about the nature of work. I can tell you a few of the things here that with Rosendale Collective. I think that over the years, when I first left the Greenbrier, I kind of started off just doing cooking classes, and I did the show Recipe Rehab. But I continued to kind of plant seeds for other opportunities, other things. And I was always careful to continue to come back and kind of just water those and kind of just continue to try to grow, not necessarily for this year, but for next year and for the next couple of years. We've, rather than paying myself a big salary right out of the gate, which I, obviously you have to build up to that. I left the Greenbrier on my own accord, and I had no compensation basically the next day. So I had to start from scratch. And, when you start off like that, I think one of the important things is to try to recycle a lot of that revenue of your company, even if it's very small, back into your operation to grow it and to invest for the future. And here we are years later, and we have, lots of different divisions and employees and team members. And, that is all by only continuing to invest and grow. So I think that's really, really important. One of the exciting things that we're doing right now is the instructor initiative. We're hiring a bunch of instructors to conduct culinary training around the United States, and also that we have plans for the following year to turn this into a global initiative as well. So we'll be looking for instructors in other countries as well. But none of that happens overnight. Like, we started investing in Rosendale Online 5 years ago, and it launched, and people just assume like, oh, hey, the pandemic happened, so and you just put this website together. No, it takes years to kind of continue to steer toward where you want to be. And I think, like I said, the nature of work, the return on that, the exciting thing is, I think that there's a better work environment for employers, and also a better culture, a better environment. And that is what's going to really attract talented people. And for the employees, for the team members, for all of you out there that are looking for opportunity, looking for work, maybe you find a blend of part-time with your side hustle, what else that you're doing, your own company. So it doesn't have to be all in. And I think that's what's exciting now, is that there's lots of flexibility for you to define what you want the nature of work to look like in the years to come. So even though this last year has been filled with lots of adversity, I think that for me, I've always looked at times that have been difficult and tumultuous to also be exciting. And the most difficult periods in my life, especially in my culinary training, they've been the times of the most incredible growth. And I think that can be true for all of you out there, if you're just willing to make the right decisions. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that when it comes to decisions, the most important thing is that you're making them, that you're doing something, that you're activating, and you're getting involved in, you're making something happen, because you can make a lot of mistakes in your career and you'll be just fine. And you can make maybe one good decision that can be pivotal, that can change your trajectory for the rest of your life. But the important thing is to be active and to keep your foot on the throttle and just, full speed ahead. And that's when exciting things will come. So, all right. Well, thanks for tuning in for our first topic with the nature of work. And we will see you next week. And I promise Rachel and Chris are going to be back, and also some more exciting guests. But we wanted to take the opportunity to shake things up a little bit. And thanks again. Thanks to our sponsors. Again, this year we are excited. We have Dry Ager, one of my favorite. I refer to everything in the kitchen as toys. One of our favorite. They probably wouldn't want to refer to it as a toy, but for me, it's a toy. They make the most amazing dry aging beef cabinet. Not even for beef, they're dry aging cabinets. We're getting ready to put some Berkshire hams in there. We've been doing our own dry aged steaks. We've been doing duck, pork, just exceptional. You can control the humidity, the temperature, has a UV light in it. The most impressive thing that I've noticed is that when you're dry aging in the dry agers, is the yield is absolutely incredible compared to over the years, other ways that we've dry aged meat. Have been really impressed with it. So check it out. Check out their website. And also Artiflame. I've been a huge fan. If you love cooking outside and you want to elevate your grilling experience, there is nothing that I've seen anywhere in the world that is as exciting to cook on as an Artiflame. They've been launching all kinds of amazing accessories. If you get one, and you should, whether you do it at your club or your restaurant or your home, one of the coolest things to do is to get a bunch of different ingredients out, invite your guests, pour some wine, pour some champagne, and let them get in and roll their sleeves up and cook their own dinner. They'll have so much fun. And I usually divide everybody up between the eaters and the cookers. So the eaters can go sit down and drink, and then the cookers help me out, and we make dinner. And then also Verlasso Salmon. They've been great supporters of all of our dinners and all of our events. We're super huge fans. They have incredible quality salmon. It's sustainable, which is important to us. They've got some really innovative sustainability techniques They're based in Chile, South America, just incredible product. And also Kohmee, Kohmee. This is the menu and recipe management software that we use for all of our operations. It's really helped us become more efficient and more consistent and better communicators with our entire team. And then also recently, you probably have noticed we've been working with Sterling caviar. I am like sold. I mean, I've tried lots of caviar over the years, and I got to tell you, I mean, I'm loving this stuff. I've been eating lots of caviar. Just did an event for the Navy SEALs, and they were eating up the caviar like nobody's business. They loved it. So big shout out and thank you to Sterling. So we'll see you next week. And thanks everybody for joining us for another show of the Let's Dig In podcast.